When you are young, your brain simply lacks the architecture to view your parents as separate, independent people. To a child, a caregiver isn't a human being with their own exhaustion, fears, or physical limits. They are a permanent, invincible fixture of the environment. Consider a mother and her young son living in a state of severe poverty. For them, extreme scarcity dictates every hour of the day, and survival requires constant, literal calculation. Every evening at dinner, a specific ritual takes place. The meager food is divided, and without fail, the mother places the final piece of flatbread, the last roti, onto her son's plate. The young boy accepts it based on a highly naive internal logic. He watches her hand over the food calmly, often with a smile, and mathematically concludes that she simply must not be hungry. Because children operate in an informational vacuum, they routinely misread the data right in front of them. The son witnesses a calculated physical sacrifice and files it away as a simple personal preference. This dynamic is a perfect example of what we can call the asymmetry of perception. This diagram shows two people sharing the exact same environment, but experiencing completely opposed realities. In the perceived reality of the child, both of their energy levels are balanced. In actual reality, one person is surviving on a stark caloric deficit to ensure the other maintains a surplus. By funneling those calories to her son, the mother forces her own body to pay the price. Day after day, her frame grows thinner and her strength wanes, her own internal energy meter quietly depleting toward zero. She creates a protective wall around this hunger, masking the physical pain of her empty stomach to ensure her son feels psychologically safe. She repeats this action at dinner the next night, and the night after that. It becomes a compounded Bailey investment spanning thousands of meals over multiple years. The foundational architecture of the son's future growth is financed by his mother's invisible physical deterioration. Years later, the son grows up and leaves the scarcity of his youth behind. He moves away, builds a career, and achieves overwhelming urban material success, surrounded by the relentless motion of a sprawling metropolis. But as his bank account grows, a massive geographical and emotional chasm opens up between them. His daily life becomes defined by speed and excess, while his mother remains in the exact same quiet, static environment he left behind. When surrounded by stability, it is incredibly easy to develop a false sense of permanence. The son operates under the quiet assumption that he has infinite time to eventually repay his mother for everything she provided. Then a phone call shatters that assumption. He receives the abrupt, non-negotiable news that his mother has died. In an instant, his wealth means nothing. Material success offers zero insulation against the sudden, irreversible finality of mortality. He travels back to his childhood village, stepping into the stark, silent house of his youth. The expensive clothes he wears now stand in sharp, uncomfortable contrast to the extreme poverty of the room. As he sorts through the few meager possessions she left behind, he finds something hidden away in a corner, an old, deeply weathered diary. This notebook is the only surviving record of her internal life. It is the sole documentation of the reality she had so carefully kept from him. He flips to a page near the beginning, and his eyes lock onto a single, clear sentence written in her hand. "Every night, I was hungry too." Right below it, she explains why she never took the food. She wrote that watching him eat provided a deep satisfaction to her soul, one that completely eclipsed the sharp pains in her stomach. In a matter of seconds, this confession shatters the son's childhood perspective. He is forced to look back at thousands of dinners and realize that the comfort of his youth was an illusion, sustained entirely by a person who is no longer there to hear his thanks. Decades of hidden sacrifices suddenly become visible all at once, dropping a crushing psychological weight onto his shoulders. The tragedy lies in the strict math of his current situation. He finally possesses the resources required to buy her any meal on earth, but the intended recipient no longer exists to eat it. This diagram shows the permanent barrier of the present. A person can accumulate infinite resources, but they cannot move backward. No amount of wealth can reach through the years to settle an emotional debt with the dead. Look at your own periphery right now. Ask yourself what silent, calculated sacrifices the people who raised you are making, or made in the past, that you have simply filed away as their personal preference. Value and acknowledge those unseen sacrifices today, while the people who make them are still here. Time is a non-refundable currency, and no amount of success can buy back the opportunity to recognize a sacrifice once the person who made it is gone.